right, everybody. Where did There we are. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Cloud Talk. Cloud Talk Live. We are back yet again for another program. So glad that you are here. Boy, do we have a fun experience for you today. I have got some great current rackers on. We've got previous rackers that are here. It's going to be quite an experience. So I'd love for you to introduce yourself while we get started here this morning. Tell me who you are. Tell me where you are. You know the routine. We'd love for this to be as much as a conversation as it is about, the information that we're bringing to you as well. So go ahead and introduce yourselves. I would love to know who's here. Also, if you want to get a hold of us over here at Cloud Talk at Rackspace, of course you can do that. Hey, Luis from San Antonio, you can always do that by sending us an email over at solve@rackspace.com, and that is going to pop up on the screen in mere seconds. There it is. Awesome. And hey, Satish, glad that you are here as well. India is here. Navneet, glad that you have joined us today. We always have such a great showing from India. So glad that you are here. Hey, today's conversation gets into, I'm going to give you a little preview into the whole conversation about zero trust. So wherever you are in the world, whether you're a racker or a non-racker, what I'd love for you to do is, as you're introducing yourself, Alexandra is here. I haven't talked to you in way too long, Alexandra. Glad that you have joined up. Excited about your new company. And but what I'd love for you to do is tell me what you think your definition of zero trust is. So go ahead. Alexandra's going to have a strong opinion about that, coming in from the company she's coming in from. But go ahead. Drew is here. Glad Drew is here. Go ahead and in the comments as well, put your definition of zero trust. You want to go steal one from the internet and copy and paste? I'll never know. But I'd really also just love to know what you have. Hey, we have a racker from Connecticut here. Mitch is here. Glad that you're here. We have lots of folks showing up from San Antonio as well. All right, with that, let's jump into the news of the day. As you know, it starts with This Week in Cloud. Now, with that, let's get into the news. Oh, come on, fancy pictures. Let's go. And it starts with a different sort of article that I wanted to share with you. And it was one that I found over on PopSci, actually. And as you may have figured out from that fancy picture right there, it is that's a picture of outside some of the cooling units at a Google data center. Now, in this article, and you can find all these articles, of course, over on the Solve website. I'm going to have a link for you to go and check that out. Cody Johnson, defining zero trust. It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. Yeah, I like that one. So everybody, be like Cody and give me your definition. So if you go and check out this article, what you're going to find is it unpacks some of the physical aspects of these hyperscale data centers, whether we're talking about Google or AWS or Microsoft as well. It talks about it from the carbon impact that it has, from the amount of electricity that it uses. These data centers are so large, they actually use the equivalent of about 50,000 homes of what a traditional home is going to consume. Also, of course, creating a fair amount of carbon in the process. Actually, one that you may not have realized as well is an amazing amount of water gets consumed in the cooling process. A lot of pledges that by 2030, specifically Google, say they will be water positive. Not sure how they'll pull that off, but a lot of closed loop systems. And then lastly, in the article, it talks about the amount of sound that these create as well. So a different sort of article. Go check that out. It's interesting to think if you think about the sustainability a fair amount, and you use a lot of cloud-based services, which we all do, and we espouse actually even over here at Cloud Talk. It's interesting to think about the impact that it has. And look at this. I don't know how many of you have actually ever seen the inside of a data center. This is the inside of actually a Google data center up in Washington State. Pretty high tech, fancy looking places. Just actually a whole lot of the same if you ever spend some time there. All right, let's move on into our next article, and that is, you think you can outthink the cloud, outcloud the cloud. And this article really helps to peel apart, when does it make sense to roll your own from a data center perspective, and when does it make sense to utilize a hyperscale cloud? there's a lot of thinking about this out on the internet, and I thought this article did a fine job of breaking it down. I'll give you the cliff notes. The cliff notes are if rolling your own servers in your own data center can create a unique value to you and to your customers and your employees, well, then maybe it starts to make sense. But the cloud has become such a commodity for speed and cost and all of the and capability that it just makes sense. So that's when we get into the conversation of hybrid cloud. So certainly something to consider there. All right. Well, with that, let's move on over into what's new in cloud releases. AWS has an interesting new capability, and that is their Code Guru, their code reviewer app service, now will detect Apache Log4j implementations or any other ones that might be of having an issue. So if you're utilizing Code Guru, it can help actually expose when you might have a security problem. Now we're going to get into security a lot deeper here shortly, so hang tight with me. In fact, let me jump back to the screen really quick where I can see your chats. Argentina is here. Marcelo, glad that you are here. I don't. Oh, there's zero trust is never trust, always verify. Ooh, Aman, I like that definition. Well, I'm going to have our experts pick that apart a little bit here shortly as well. Hey, with that, let's jump over to Azure, of course. And virtual machine level disk bursting now supports additional VM types. And what this gets down to is the ability to actually burst into different types of disk usage and disk consumption, as well as virtual machines. It can help with certain workloads like booting your VMs faster, help deal with traffic spikes better, and handle batch jobs better, because batch jobs maybe need a different type of disk to be able to process faster. So that's new from Azure. And then over at Google, they have a new feature called profiling data flow pipelines with Cloud Profiler is now generally available. It's been in preview for a while. And Profiler is a statistical low overhead profiler that continuously gathers CPU and memory usage to help debug, to help you choose right infrastructure. But it's constantly looking at the consumption of what you've got going on to help you better find bottlenecks and optimize your environments. So that's what's new from over at Google. And with that, of course, all of these links, whether it's the news, whether it's what's new from Google, or information about our guests, who you're going to meet shortly, you can find over at rackspace.com/solve/93. Welcome to episode 93 of Cloud Talk and Cloud Talk Live. Well, with that, we're over to the job of the day. Rackspace is hiring like mad. Now, in our thought leadership program here, we don't talk about Rackspace a lot, other than to say it's a great place to come work. I sure like it. And one of the jobs that is particularly exciting is a manager of software development. Guys, we are doing a ton of software development, whether it's internal on our own systems or whether we're doing that for our customers. Because we are, this is not the Rackspace of old of just data centers and servers and people. We are actually really helping people transform their workloads. So with that comes software development. With that becomes people to lead software developers. Now you can learn all about this role over, again, you can click into over at rackspace.com/solve/93. You'll find a link to this job. You also could even apply for that job. We'd love for you to come and get to work with Daniel and I and Gary over here at Rackspace. Now, rest assured that the Solve section of our website is a sales-free zone. No pop-ups. Hey, this is Mitch. Can I help you? What can I sell you today? Doesn't exist there. This /93, in fact, is all about what we're talking about on this episode. We, of course, put the audio out for this episode as part of the Cloud Talk podcast. We've got some great new episodes coming out. Well, there's a new one even, I think, coming out Friday. And you can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are found, wherever your favorite one is. Just search for Cloud Talk and subscribe. I would love for you to do that. All right, with that, it means we get to go in and have our cloud conversation. Now, let me first introduce you to the two gentlemen who are going to come up on stage here very, very shortly. The first is John Engates. Now, John and I have known each other quite literally for over a decade. I started at Rackspace back in 2008. John predated me here. He's actually Rackspace's first CTO and longest running CTO. So I'm excited that John is back hanging around with us at Rackspace, but he's doing so in the context of his new company, Cloudflare. We also have Gary Alterson, who is here, and Gary leads everything that we're doing on the security side of the house. So with that, let's bring these fine gentlemen up onto stage. John Engates back hanging around with us at Rackspace. So glad that you're here.
Hey, Jeff. Good to see you. I'm excited to be here today, and it's really cool to be back on a Rackspace podcast. I've maybe done one or two of those in my day, but it's super cool to be back. Good to see your face, and hi to everybody around the world.
Hey, glad that you are here. And you spent a little bit of time here. And at Rackspace, we have a tradition of measuring those milestones. In fact, you showed it when we were in pre. Would you hold that up for a second?
Yeah. So at Rackspace, if you walk around the building, the castle, as we used to call it, we still do. I guess you call it the castle still. There are flags hanging everywhere, and this is my 15-year flag.
Wow.
You can't really get it all into the frame there, but they didn't have an 18-year flag. That's how long I spent at Rackspace, and I took the 15, and I'm still having a lot of pride in having that around this office.
You should, and your impact, of course, on Rackspace is legend, and we continue to reap the benefits of all of your hard work over those years. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Jeff.
You bet. And Gary, not a stranger to the program, Gary Alterson leads all things security here at Rackspace on our product side. Welcome back to the program, Gary.
Hey, Jeff, glad to be here. Hey, John. I didn't get a 1-year flag in December, but looking forward to whatever flags I get.
Looking forward to the 5. We do them in 5s. All right. So our topic here today is zero trust, and as you heard when I was doing the little preamble earlier, I asked folks to comment about what they thought definitions might be, and the top one I see here is from Navit, and it says it's a security model to secure our networking environments without trusting anyone. I like that one. Sort of a generic sort of a description. Another one that Megan says is protecting your remote workforce with security. We also see Aman saying zero trust is never trust, always verify. That might be my favorite one that's listed here. John, what do you think about these definitions? What's ringing true to you?
Well, I think there is a element of truth in all of those definitions. You have to think, sort of big picture about security, and all of those things are true. Sometimes we fall into the trap of contaminating or diluting zero trust. The marketing folks get a hold of it, and they create buzzwords, and they do. You probably remember the term cloud washing from years ago, when people would apply the word cloud to almost any new product just because it was hot, right?
Right.
I think sometimes we find that happens with zero trust, but zero trust is not a product. I want to make that super clear for people. You can't just go buy zero trust and put it on your computer. That doesn't work. It's a model for information security, and that's a good high-level way to think about it, as a model. And it really does do what the listeners described as sort of default denying access until proven innocent, so to speak, in terms of your access to applications. So I'll let maybe Gary, you chime in on that too. I don't want to hoard the call here.
Oh, it's all good.
Yeah.
So, and Gary, you come from an aspect where you've been in security for a long time, so maybe you can also contrast what zero trust, the model that zero trust is, to maybe what it used to be.
Yeah. So when you look back in history at security, right, you used to determine your trust by like a single boundary, whether you were in my physical office and on my LAN, or outside my office and on the internet. And I trusted you if you were in my office. I didn't trust you if you were outside on the internet. And that was okay for a while, but as the use of cloud propagated, COVID brought a huge explosion in remote access, but even before then, remote access was always a problem, right? That whole concept of that perimeter boundary as the layer of trust has gone away. So the question became, well, how do you trust in this perimeterless environment, or a boundaryless environment? And the answer came, and it's not a new answer. It was around since, back when I started in security and the Jericho project, is trust, determine trust by the trustworthiness of the people and devices that you're communicating with, essentially, and then establish a secure communications tunnel that you can also trust to communicate over. And that's sort of the foundation of zero trust, as a concept and as a architecture, a concept. on which to build your security architecture and network and infrastructure going forward.
Yeah, and sort of what I think you're really calling out strongly when we start talking about architectures, we start talking about these sorts of levels of plans. We're emphasizing what John said, and it's not a shrink wrap zero trust product to go pull off the shelf and hey, can I have 5 of those in blue, please? No, it's something that is a combination of when we say architecture, we're talking about a plan, we're talking about a roadmap, and of course tooling does fit into that story. So let's start with really talking about how does one start with thinking through a plan of implementing. What are those first steps towards heading towards a zero trust? We'll get into tooling here in a second. I think John has maybe a bit of an opinion about that.
Yeah, Jeff, I think first of all, you have to step back and ask, what are you trying to protect? That's what Gary was mentioning. In the past, we were trying to protect the network, and we were putting that perimeter around it. But the perimeter no longer exists, and so now let's step back and think, what are we trying to protect? That may define or help us guide where we're going to start. And information and data is sort of the most valuable commodity in the context of computing, and users and their devices have access to information and data. So we have to protect the applications, the users, the devices, and we have to think about that in the context of the entire flow from the end user to the data wherever it may sit. So today, that information, those applications are more distributed than ever. They are on premises, they are in the cloud, they are in a software as a service environment, they're in public clouds, private clouds, hyperscale data centers, and they're typically accessed over the internet. The internet it's really come to the forefront as the primary mechanism, the primary transport for getting to applications because of the remote work, the hybrid work dynamic that's really evolved over the last couple of years. So when we think about implementing zero trust, we have to get inventory of where our data is, where our users are, what do we want to protect, how do we want to approach that, and then start to break it down into components that we can attack it with a zero trust strategy.
That's right. Gary, looks like there's a thought on the tip of your tongue right over there.
No, I was just looking at the notes and wanted to give a shout out to Dre Oliver out there, who says, I know something about zero trust. Dre knows something about zero trust. He and I worked together in the past, and he built some zero trust strategy. So, hey, Dre.
You may be on.
I do want to add I might be onto something with the zero trust thing. Maybe it's going to grow big. To add on to sort of what John said, like the zero trust as an architectural concept is huge. Applying throughout your network, throughout your data center, into your cloud, it can be really, really daunting. So you need a place to start. Yeah. One of the easiest places to start, and one of the most relevant places to start, is in an approach to using zero trust as an approach to secure your remote access. As users are, working more and more remotely, COVID sort of caused an explosion of that. But even before then, we had people traveling, VPNing in from who knows where, using their own mobile devices to access critical data. So it makes it's a large impact, and probably in I won't say easy, but easier place to start by looking at how you achieve remote access and how you achieve zero trust within remote access, including making sure you're authenticating your users appropriately. Right. And strongly, so you've got a good view on who is doing the access, and it's the right authorized user. And then, making sure that those devices, and basically authenticating those devices itself, making sure those devices have integrity. Are they patched? Do they have antivirus running? Do they have, if you have specific controls that you require for accessing your network, making sure that those controls are in place. And then after those pieces are in place, and you've validated that integrity of the device itself, then allow access and conduct that access over a secure tunnel. And more as folks use remote access VPNs, they're also recognizing sort of that the traditional remote access VPN is a little more complicated, a lot of overhead. And there's
and it doesn't fit every scenario either, right? Because if you're all in on Microsoft 365 or a Google Docs type of Google Suite, now VPNing into the corporate network, what value is there in some cases? So how deal, and then if you're using Salesforce or you've got some Workday in your environment, or fill in the blank on the SaaS provider, you need this more holistic way to ensure that data is safe and secure. So Rackspace has a new partnership with John's company, and so maybe John, you can speak a little bit. We say that zero trust isn't tooling, but tooling absolutely fits into this. So when we think about what you guys bring.
Yeah, so I think Gary's talking about the traditional VPN, and that was really just a way to get into the corporate network behind the firewall, so to speak. Yeah. There are obviously more advanced capabilities in VPN, but I overheard somebody say the other day that they retired the VPN, the corporate VPN, and I thought that ought to be a badge of honor for somebody. Basically, if you're in a cybersecurity engineer and you've gotten rid of that model of security and moved beyond that, what that means is that you're implementing a new approach to onboarding users to the applications. Basically, you're probably leveraging some cloud-based services in the application space. And now, as we think about how to do zero trust security in the context of digital transformation, we want to transform that security model as well. And we want to start delivering or consuming some of our security services from the cloud. It only makes sense to have cloud delivered services. Maybe that would be a firewall as a service, or a cloud access security broker that defines how and who and what you can access, and an on-ramp to the cloud that replaces the VPN with something that is more elegant from an end user perspective. We don't want to have to send traffic all the way to the corporate network and then come all the way back. They call that tromboning, where you have to go all the way out and all the way back to get basically access to these applications, and that introduces a lot of latency. And the internet, we have to take latency out because this is a global network. That we can't solve the speed of light problem, so we have to basically remove latency wherever we can to make that user experience as good as it can be. And so, if we can do the security services that we need to do, whether that's checking access in an identity store of some sort, or filtering traffic in some way, we need to do that as close to the end user as we can at the edge. So we'll hear that term edge come up, and that just means doing it near the end user wherever they may reside on the planet. And so edge, cloud, delivered security services, whatever, these I don't want to fall into the buzzword trap, but that is the model where we think about Cloudflare in the context of zero trust. Where can we get close to the end user, maybe filter traffic, maybe do browser isolation, maybe secure assets in that environment from a cloud perspective.
Yeah. So we really do have just about 5 minutes left, but from a Cloudflare point of view, you're speaking about how we're handling, that individual user experience, that device experience. What Cloudflare brings to the market, of course, is so much more than that, from denial of service protection, and maybe you can get into how you help even protect applications themselves. Sure. So not necessarily from the user perspective, but now we're going to take it from the app's perspective.
So Cloudflare has been in the market for about 10 or 11 years at this point, protecting all kinds of web applications, websites, big internet properties from denial of service attacks. You mentioned DOS or DDoS, distributed denial of service. And they did that also by filtering traffic at the edge, near where the source of the traffic was. If you're doing a denial of service attack against a website, you're often using a botnet, and that botnet is distributed potentially all over the world. So the best place to filter traffic from the bad traffic in a DDoS is near that the source, so to speak. Yeah. So we're basically leveraging our global network that we built for DDoS and for CDN and other functions Now we're taking that and applying it to an enterprise network and security use case. We have 250 locations around the globe, different cities, different countries, including China, and we're using that global network, 250 locations, to be the on-ramp or the gateway to the cloud, and to allow the users to, again, take advantage of that network, the scale of that network, to apply these security policies, the zero trust approach to security.
Yeah, I love the fact that you're doing that out as close to the edge as possible, as opposed to some central aggregation point that then again tromboning out. You don't want to go to one place to do something and then have to head somewhere else. So Gary, when we think about the combination of services and the tooling, like what John and the folks over at Cloudflare bring to the market, how does it's not just about tooling, of course. Tell me where strategy then fits into this.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think from a people perspective and a strategic perspective, as you look at how you go about implementing a zero trust architecture, there's really sort of two aspects to it from a people perspective. One, there's your actual end users themselves, right? And some of the end users need access to data, right? So you need to validate who they are, validate the machines they're accessing or the devices they're accessing from, have some integrity, and then give them, access. And then what they're accessing over time, you want to make sure has that same kind of integrity, whether it be a cloud-based serverless application or it be traditional server-based application. So that's sort of the first sort of people element. The other, what I'll call user element of that is, administrators who have maybe even more access. And in one of the tenets of his potential zero trust architecture is that, as your need for access and your ability to do harm essentially goes up, that you ratchet up also the amount of validation that you're doing on, is that the right person, i.e. you're validating their identity in a more stringent fashion, and that the devices that they're accessing from may have more stringent requirements. So being able to diversify your policy on the basis of what someone may have access to or what their role is. And that can play out also as well to additional roles like finance, who has access to financial data, or HR and HR data, or PII, etc. And I think the other aspect is just a more people perspective on policy and architecture, and building principles and patterns that architects can use to build applications and build out new cloud-based infrastructure. Because we know it's not centrally built these days, right? It's built through code. It's built through SREs and developers, and so we have to give them the right training and patterns in how to build applications with an infrastructure with zero trust in mind.
Yeah. So we only had 20 minutes to have the conversation. I feel like we've just gotten through the introduction of the topic. I'd love to come back and maybe even step through some of the aspects of application life cycle, where the tooling fits in, where the right people fit in, where the right strategy fits in, where we can maybe educate a little bit more and go a little bit deeper into implementing a zero trust strategy. I think we just got through the definition, which is great, of course. And John, it was so good to have you back. I look forward to you being back on these here in the not too distant future.
Thanks, Jeff. It was a pleasure to be here today.
Oh yeah. So everybody, and Gary, of course, always a pleasure. The door is always open to you. Everyone, as always, thank you so much for being a part of today. I want to remind you that you can go and find the audio for this, or all of the links as well that we talked about, information about John. If you want to learn more about what's happening over at Cloudflare, all of John's contact information is there in Cloudflare's content. So head over and chat with them. Audio for this, of course, available on the podcast. You can find that anywhere podcasts are found. Everyone, I hope you have an amazing day, and we'll be back here on Tuesday with the next edition of Hot Talk Live.